There was a mother alone at home, with her 2 children being threatened by 3 armed men. Neighbors had called 911, but police would take 15 minutes to arrive. That's when neighborhood security guard Frank stepped in. 3 minutes later, everything was over. The robbers had no serious injuries, but all 3 had been neutralized. When NYPD arrived and learned who Frank was, they were shocked. Welcome to Veterans Untold Stories. Before we begin this powerful story, tell us which city you're watching from in the comments, and if you believe untold veteran stories deserve to be brought to light, hit that subscribe button. These stories deserve to be remembered. Riverside Heights was known as a quiet neighborhood in Queens. Old brick apartments, small gardens, narrow streets, and neighbors who knew each other. It was a peaceful corner where families lived, away from the chaotic pace of New York. But in recent years, the city's general security problems had begun to seep in here too. Frank Williams, 72 years old, had been the night security guard of this neighborhood for the past 15 years. He was tall, gray-haired, always dressed neatly, a calm man. The neighborhood association had hired him in 2008, and since then he had been serving as a loyal guard. Frank's shift started every night at 10 p.m. and ended at 6 a.m. During his 8-hour shift, he would patrol the neighborhood streets, check apartment entrances, and report suspicious activities. He had a flashlight in his hand, a radio on his belt, and wore a vest that said "Neighborhood Security." The neighborhood residents loved Frank. He was reliable, kind, always ready to help. He would carry elderly Mrs. Rodriguez's shopping bags, ensure young couples got home safely late at night, and protect children's safety while they played in the park. Frank had never married and lived alone. He stayed in a small apartment in the neighborhood, read books in his spare time, and tended to his garden. He didn't talk about his past, and when asked, he would say old days and move on. During his 15 years of service, there had been no major incidents in the neighborhood. Small burglary attempts, noise complaints, traffic problems. These were routine problems that Frank dealt with. Neighborhood residents took this safe environment for granted and appreciated Frank's role. That November night was cold. Frank was doing his routine patrol, walking quietly through the streets as usual. At 1:30 a.m., as he passed in front of the apartments on Elm Street, something caught his attention. A black car with its door ajar, silhouettes moving inside. Frank stopped at a distance and observed. 3 people got out of the car, all dressed in dark clothes, faces covered. One was carrying a bag. Their movements were suspicious. Frank quietly approached and began assessing the situation. The 3 people stopped at the entrance of apartment number 1247. One was tampering with the door locks. The other 2 were watching the surroundings. Frank realized this was a burglary attempt and reported it to headquarters via radio. "Headquarters, this is Frank. Suspicious activity at 1247 Elm Street. 3 people trying to force entry into the building. Frank, maintain your position. Police have been dispatched. ETA 15 minutes. 15 minutes was a long time. Frank continued observing. The burglars had managed to open the door and entered the building. Frank carefully moved to the side of the building, taking a position where he could see the situation better. Just then, screaming sounds came from inside, women's and children's voices. This was no longer simple burglary. It had turned into a home invasion. Frank reassessed the situation. Light was on in the 3rd floor. Sounds were coming from there. The Rodriguez family, Mother Maria and 2 children aged 8 to 12. The father was at work at this hour. Only the defenseless family was at home. Frank didn't hesitate. Despite being 72 years old, he began quietly climbing the stairs, careful with each step, making no footsteps, moving with muscle memory from his war years. When he reached the 3rd floor, he could clearly hear the situation. 3 male voices, 1 woman, and 2 children. Threatening tones, fearful screams. "Give us your money or we'll hurt the children. Please don't touch them. We'll give you whatever you want." Frank approached the apartment door. The door was ajar. He could assess the situation inside. 3 armed men, family in the living room, children trying to hide behind their mother Maria. At this moment, the tactical training Frank had learned 50 years ago kicked in. The close combat techniques he had learned as a Force Recon Marine, enemy neutralization methods, multiple target neutralization, all came back at once. Frank analyzed the situation. 3 targets, armed, civilian hostages present. Surprise factor available, area narrow, tactical advantage present. The operation plan formed in his head. He silently slipped through the door. The first target had his back turned to him, standing near the window. Frank reached him in 2 steps, applied pressure point technique to his neck and silently knocked him out. He took his weapon. When the second target noticed the situation and turned, Frank had already taken position. With the twisting technique he applied to his arm, he made him drop his weapon, then safely brought him to the ground. The third target had pointed a gun at Maria and had noticed Frank. "Stop! Don't come closer or I'll shoot the woman." Frank raised his hands and spoke in a calm voice. Okay, stay calm. Don't hurt anyone. Let's talk about whatever you want. Who are you? Are you a cop? No, I'm a neighborhood security guard. I just want everyone's safety. While Frank was talking, he was slowly approaching. He was distracting the man's attention, allowing Maria to move to a safe position. I said stop. Don't come closer, Frank then acted. His training from 50 years ago kicked in. Weapon neutralization technique, quick position change, safely neutralizing the target. In 2 seconds, the weapon was out of his hand. The man was safely immobilized on the ground. The entire operation took 3 minutes. Maria and her children were looking at Frank in shock. The man who had just been an elderly, harmless security guard had neutralized 3 armed robbers like a professional soldier. How did you do that? Maria asked, trembling. Frank smiled. What matters is your safety. Is anyone hurt? No, but this isn't possible. Let's wait until the police arrive. Don't let the children be afraid. 15 minutes later, NYPD arrived. Detective Sarah Coleman and 2 police officers were surprised when they saw the scene. 3 robbers, neutralized without injury but completely immobilized. Family safe, Frank waiting calmly. Mr. Williams, said Detective Coleman, how did this happen? Frank explained simply. 3 people forced entry into the building, threatened the family. I intervened. But how did you intervene? These men were armed. I was lucky. I had the surprise factor. Detective Coleman wasn't convinced. Her 35 years of police experience told her this wasn't luck. This required professional training. Mr. Williams, could we talk with you at the station? Frank agreed. At the station, Detective Coleman asked him more detailed questions. Frank, where did you learn these techniques? Frank remained silent for a long time. Then he took an old ID card from his pocket. Faded military ID. Sergeant Frank Williams, U.S. Marine Corps Force Recon. Detective Coleman's eyes widened. Force Recon? When did you serve? 1968 to 1988. 20 years active duty. Vietnam, Panama, Grenada. This is incredible. Why did you never mention it? Frank shrugged. It stayed in the past. I'm just a neighborhood security guard now. The news spread quickly in the neighborhood. Frank Williams, the kind security guard they had known for 15 years, was a former Force Recon Marine. Maria Rodriguez told her neighbors, Frank saved us. But you should have seen how he moved. It was like something from an action movie. Neighborhood residents began looking at Frank with different eyes. Now they knew he wasn't just a security guard, but a real protector. Mrs. Patterson, the 78-year-old neighbor, came to Frank. Frank, you hid your identity all these years. Why? Frank looked at the neighborhood through the window. Because the war stayed in the past, Mrs. Patterson. I found peace here. These people became my family. Do you ever regret it? No. Each period has its own duty. I fought, now I protect. The story appeared in the media. News titled Secret Hero in Queens was made. But Frank refused interview requests. My story is here, in this neighborhood, he would say. Those who want to know me should come and talk. The neighborhood association wanted to honor Frank. A special ceremony was organized. Frank initially didn't want it, but accepted due to the insistence of neighborhood residents. On the ceremony day, Frank spoke. This neighborhood accepted me, became family to me. I tried to protect it as much as I could. What is your advice for young people? He was asked. Serve, in whatever way, to whoever, your family, your neighbor, your community. Service gives meaning to life. Young neighbor Michael asked, what was your most difficult mission in Force Recon? Frank thought. In Vietnam in 1972. Rescue operation for a missing pilot. 72 hours in enemy territory. But we brought him home. Were you afraid? Always. But don't let fear stop you. Sometimes you have to face fear to do what's right. After the ceremony, many people thanked Frank. But the most touching moment was when Maria Rodriguez came with her children. Mr. Frank, said 8-year-old Sophia, you're our superhero. Frank knelt down, came to the child's eye level. I'm not a superhero, Sophia. I'm just your neighbor, and neighbors protect each other. From that day on, everything changed in the neighborhood. Frank still does the same job, still patrols the same routes, but now he receives different respect. Young people come to him with questions. Elderly neighbors value him more. Children see him as a real hero. One day, Detective Coleman visited him. Frank, would you like to be a consultant at NYPD? Your experience is very valuable. Frank shook his head. Thank you, but I'm here. This neighborhood is my place. But why? You could do more prestigious jobs. Frank looked at the neighborhood. Prestige doesn't matter. I'm happy here. Protecting these people is enough for me. A year later, the crime rate in the neighborhood was close to zero. Frank's presence had a deterrent effect, and neighbors were protecting each other more. Frank, said his neighbor James, you changed this neighborhood. Frank smiled. No, James. This neighborhood changed me. It gave me new purpose. Today, Frank is 77 years old. He still patrols every night, still protects the neighborhood. But now he's not just a security guard. He's a living legend. Children call him Grandpa Frank. Young people approach him with respect. Elderly people see him as an advisor. Grandpa Frank, the children say, will you tell us Force Recon stories? Frank patiently explains, the most important thing is working as a team. No one is strong alone. But if we act together, we can protect everyone. And he always adds, remember, real strength isn't harming others, it's protecting them. Frank's story shows us that service never ends. From Vietnam forests to Queen streets, from Force Recon to neighborhood security. The purpose is always the same, to protect. Now I ask you, have you ever met someone like this? Someone working an ordinary job but hiding an extraordinary past? Security guard, janitor, watchman, who knows what heroic stories they carry? Share their names in the comments. Tell their stories. Because at Veterans Untold Stories, we believe that real heroes don't always wear uniforms. Sometimes they wear security vests and protect our neighborhoods throughout the night. If this story touched you, don't forget to subscribe. Help keep these forgotten stories alive. Until we meet in the next video. And remember, if a security guard's presence in a neighborhood makes you feel very safe, maybe look twice. Maybe you're under the protection of a real warrior.